What's up guys, welcome to Munchkins Gaming, where we take your gaming to the next level. This is Munchkins logging in to bring you another Exos Heroes video, and in this video we are going to take a look at a core reversal on one of the Summer Festa characters, which is going to be FC Glenn. Now before we do start, like and subscribe if you haven't already. If it does help the channel guys, and I really do appreciate it. So without further ado, let's start this video off. As always, we're gonna go through the changes for the Fate Core, both in active and passive skills, and then we will be going through the PvP, offensive and defensive, and then we can go through the PvE for that character. So this time around it's FC Glenn. So I'm kind of surprised that they are doing a core reversal. FC Glenn is by no means really old. He is one of the older ones when it comes to Fate cores, but it's still quite surprising that they've picked FC Glenn as the first core reversal on the Summer Festa character. So that's really interesting. So let's take a look at the changes for his passive. So he's still got thrust, so he's still got that 30% damage and then inflict stun when he gets hit. You got the flap, which is basically a stun for 3 turns, as long as he is buffed with any buff, recovery, or positive effects. He's got the Summer's Blessing, which grants frost damage immunity 1 time. And then he's got that buff which increases the target's attack by 50% for 9 turns when the frost damage immunity effect is removed. Now the change that they've added basically is called Thirst. Now this grants damage reflect when own health falls below 30%. That's a little bit surprising and interesting, but let's keep going. Active skill 1, Scorching Injustice Strike. No changes on this one. Still requires 1 mana, 150% damage on 1 target, and then increasing his defense by 20%. His skill 2, however, active skill 2 is Scorching Bombing Order. It still has 5 mana, still do 178% damage to all targets, and then they will be afflicted by shock by 5 turns. Now some of you might be wondering, you got the modification already. If you're new to Exos Heroes, why does he have 2 stuns attached to him? Well, the reason for that is there are status immunities, especially with armor cores and stuff like that. That you can only, they can block 1 status immunity, but then the second one can still kick in. So having 2 types of status effect will actually help you when it comes to fighting those players who have stacked like the machine armor cores, which grants status immunity for 1 time, 2 times, something along those lines. So next is the change. Basically this will reset the turn of a hero with the fastest attack speed when the attack hits. That is very interesting, okay. I think let's talk about PvP now. Let's start with offensive like we always do, and I think this is very interesting. When it comes to offensive, I'm not really gung-ho about this thirst. Only because if I would have liked it, it was 40%. I think 30% is a bit too low. Damage reflect. I mean, it's not like you're not gonna take any damage. You're still gonna take damage. Reflect here is kind of different from the way it really works on other games. Like sometimes, when it's reflect, it's kind of like I don't take damage, I'll just reflect the damage back to you. In this game, you still take damage, and then a certain percentage of that is reflected back on the enemy. So yeah, I think I would have liked it. It was 40%. It would have proved much more useful, especially if you're taking a whole ton of damage. So, but I mean, that's okay. But I think the most interesting thing here in terms of offensive PvP is this. Now, requiring 5 mana is asking for a lot, right? Glenn is not particularly slow, but he's not the fastest either. So would you have enough mana for this? I think it's worth looking into both Iris and Shell's speed compared to FC Glenn. So let's go ahead and check that out. Let's go to the journal and we'll take a look at Glenn's speed first. Now, from memory, yeah, he is mediocre in terms of speed. His average 70. Now, Iris is definitely faster. Now, if you obviously have the same identical gear for both of them, Iris is definitely going to go first. So FC Iris is going to be able to apply or generate mana for Glenn. Now the question is, will Shell do it? Shell is faster, so definitely you can definitely pull it off. Glenn will have the mana for his skill 2. And I think the way you want to play around with this is if you have something along the lines of FC Rara, of course, is one of the fastest characters, and what you can do is FC Shell can generate 3 mana and can grant a turn or an extra turn for that character. So what you can do is let FC Glenn have a turn, and then hopefully you have the required mana. Sometimes in the turn order, FC Iris might go first, and you can definitely have enough mana by then. But hopefully with just FC Shell is going to be enough for you to generate that mana. And then that way you can have 1 extra turn for your fastest character. Now the issue is going to be, will that fastest character have enough mana to do anything at all? I personally speaking, if I use FC Rara, I use her skill 2 straight away, dealing a lot of AoE damage. But when you pair it up with FC Glenn, you might want to think about, just using your skill 1, and then you can get an extra turn and use your skill 2 that way. But at the same time, you can generate that mana FC Shell that's giving to Glenn to FC Rara anyway. But the thing is, you are giving extra turns to these characters. So FC Glenn giving extra turn will still have a turn if you manage to give him FC Shell's extra turn ability, right? So that's a lot of turns that are free turns basically to do damage. And I like that idea. And this is by no means, a useless ability at all, even without this special effect attached to it. The shock itself is already pretty good if you can do it. 5 turns is a lot, and there's not a whole lot of characters that has status immunity, and I don't know if anyone's actually building up for it. And we had FC Yungen as well that has multiple stuns attached to his kit. I believe it's FC Yungen. I can't remember. There was one of the chefs had like multiple stuns attached to them. And I think it can work out. You can have a lot of stun effects, right? And make sure that your enemies don't get a turn. So I think this is pretty useful in offensive PvP, and it is quite an interesting one that we need to probably play around with before we can make a real review on how good FC Glenn is now. But I think this definitely helps him to basically be used, because when he came out, no one wanted to use him. There was no point in using FC Glenn at all. He was basically just a skin for Glenn, and with an added Flap Flap and Summer's Blessing, which other Summer Festa characters already have, and seeing as Summer's Blessing does not stack, there was no point in bringing FC Glenn along. So I think in offensive PvP, there's definitely going to be a room for FC Glenn. I just can't say whether he is like main team tank wise, because FC Tantalo is actually a pretty good consideration for a tank on your main team. And some people like myself have been trying to run teams without tanks, and I'm kind of failing at that, but I still want to keep trying and see how far I can go without FC Tantalo. But yeah, it's just a waiting game at the moment. So we'll just have to wait and see how this all pans out. Alright, now let's talk about defensive PvP. Defensive PvP wise, I mean, you are going to be at the mercy of the AI, and seeing as that's the way it is, chances are he's not gonna do much. That's the thing. You need like defensive effects, not just for himself but for your team, to be very helpful. Now, unleash potential wise, I do believe he grants one character some sort of protection. I think that's what they have for tanks. I'm still waiting for people to say whether they want me to cover that when I do these first impressions or core reversal kind of things. Let me know if you want me to cover that. But you know, not a lot of people will have the materials for Unleash Potential. That's why it's kind of hard to say, you know, whether they're gonna be really great with it or without. You know, they'll be okay without it. Of course, they'll be much better, but would you risk all of that items for this particular character, or would another character be much better to have those items, you know, for their Unleashed Potential? So yeah, defensive wise, I just can't see there's anything else that's very helpful. The increased defense is nice, but honestly speaking, with signature force going through like defenses, this is not gonna help you all that much. If there was a way for you to have skill 2 as the first skill that they use, then maybe, but at this point in time, unfortunately, defensive PvP, I think FC Tantalo still takes the cake. Right, that's all I can really say, because there's really not much to talk about when it comes to defensive, unless they have really good defensive passives attached to them, or defensive active skills, right? So yeah, anyway, let's talk about PvE, which is the last one. Now PvE wise, this is this is pretty good. This is really good. Machine days, you got all damage, you know, all enemies. That's really great. Then you have the shock as well, the stun. Now when it comes to like new PvE story content, there's a lot of status effect immunity, so it might not be as helpful, but the special effects attached to this one is still really good. It lets you have an extra turn, which means you can, you know, do all sorts of stuff with that extra turn. Obviously it's really going to depend on your party composition and how you play it out. I think PvE wise is definitely gonna be helpful. Holy Dragon Grounds wise, it's probably not as great, but because it doesn't have the Dragon's Blessing, but this reflect damage though is gonna help with the overall damage that you're gonna give against the dragon when you drop below 30%. Now in saying that, I still like it to be 40%, but overall I think he's a pretty decent character now, and I think he's gonna be very useful. Yeah, so my final thoughts for this character is there's definitely improvement. I think he's gonna be, you know, active in some maybe team 2 or maybe even team 3, kinds of things in PvP in terms of tag. I think he's gonna be seeing some light finally when he didn't see anything at all. And what's funny is I actually got 2 FC Glen recently, and one of them was from, I do believe, the monthly Fate Core ticket that we get, and I think I got him on maybe one of the pools as well. I can't remember on top of my head, but I did get 2 of them, which I didn't have any previously. I thought I did, but I didn't. I managed to pull 2 of them, and I managed to fuse at least, you know, at least once. So this basically saves me Zez for this week once again, unless the next weekly one is a gold banner. I think I'll be safe. And when it comes to pulling for characters, if it's a blue Fate Core this week, look, with blue Fate Cores, it's kind of hard for me to justify sometimes. The only blue Fate Core that I really went for was FC Aiden. So yeah, I don't know. Hopefully it's not a blue Fate Core. I'm really hoping it's not, but the chances are it is, because that's how they do it. They do gold, 2 blacks, and the blue, and then gold again. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see for the other banner. But is FC Glen gonna be worth your zest? Huh. That's a tough question to answer, actually. I do think there's some potential in him. And like I said, we have to wait how this all pans out a little bit. I still think this is a very, very unique special effect. Obviously, we already have characters that grant extra turns, like FC Lepin, and then, you know, we got FC Shell as well doing this. But if you can add FC Glen to accompany one of those 2, I think it's well worth investing a little bit of zest on FC Glen. I wouldn't say go all out, but if you do get him in the first couple of pulls, I think he's gonna be a very good character for you on machine days. He's definitely gonna be helpful. And then of course in PvP, there's going to be some room for him, especially if you're lacking on some tanks and, you know, you want to use Glen instead. Yeah, I wouldn't say, yeah, he's well worth your zest, but if you can spare if you have a few zest left over, you know, seeing that we already got a lot of our refunds back, I think there will be some people willing to pull for him. And I think, you know, it's okay to put a little bit of an investment on FC Glen. Anyway, those are my thoughts, and yeah. I guess this is the part where we end the video, and when I tell you guys to click like and subscribe once again, because it does help the channel, guys. It really does, and I really do appreciate it if you do. And you can always follow me on Twitter and on Facebook at Munchkins Gaming. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to get back to you as quick as I can. And then, of course, leave down in the comments below if you are planning to pull for FC Glen. Let me know down in the comments below, and let me know how much zest you are planning to use if you are planning to pull on him as well. Anyway, this is Munchkins logging off. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next level.